Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. John Kelly, Profiler here, and welcome. Welcome to part two of our very sad case, and it's quite a mystery. It's really quite a mystery. Who took Oakley Carlson from Oakville in the state of Washington? You know, this is a girl that was taken off her parents due to their meth addictions, and she was put into foster care. You know, sadly, Oakley's disappeared. The parents are now in jail. And they're not in jail because of Oakley. They're in jail because they held back medication from another child. There's a couple charges that are on them, but the major charge is, holding back medication for the well-being of one of their other childs, one of Oakley's siblings. Seems the parents are not being cooperative and where Oakley could be. Now, of course, I'm not saying they've done anything wrong yet with Oakley, although, this is, pretty sensitive stuff here. So I can't accuse them specifically of doing something, and everybody's innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. But, when a child is missing or has disappeared and you're not being cooperative with law enforcement, that leaves you to be suspect of some type of wrongdoing. You know, while Oakley was in foster care, she had foster parents that really cared for and loved her. They had her for a number of years. When they were told by, I guess it's Child Services up there in Washington, that Oakley had to be returned to her biological parents, who again were meth addicts, I'd have to believe they had to clean themselves up to get custody of her back. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But they were brokenhearted when they had to give they had to give Oakley up and give her back to these parents and relinquish custody back to these biological parents. You know, my question is, the best question is, how did the biological parents, get her back? Because I've been involved in this, through my experience and my history in being director of counseling centers and also working with the court systems. I have to tell you, first of all, when you lose a child, when the Division of Youth and Family Services, or whatever their names are, in your particular state come in on you, and they take your child away, they take custody away from you and give custody of that child to foster parents, you really have done something wrong. They really believe that you're endangering the welfare or the life of that child. So for them to take Oakley away from her biological parents to begin with had to be something major. Something major took place there. They were scared for Oakley's well-being and possibly for her life. I don't know. Okay. Now, the better question is, how did the biological parents get her back? Because once your child is taken away by Youth and Family Services, it is not easy to get your child back, especially if you're an addict of some sort. And in this case, it looks like they were meth addicts, right? So what has to happen is both of them, if both of them are meth addicts, both of them, mom and dad, would have to go into a rigorous treatment program. Now, sometimes it can be outpatient, sometimes it has to be inpatient. It would be up to someone throughout the legal system involved in Oakley's case, or the court system, to evaluate this couple to see exactly what kind of treatment they needed. Now, the very fact that Oakley was gone from their custody for over 2 years, I think it is, at least a couple years, tells me that these people must have had a hard time cleaning up. Now, in order to prove that they've cleaned up, they would have had to graduate and complete some type of intensive outpatient or inpatient program before they could petition the courts to get custody of Oakley back. So obviously they had to complete some kind of program. I'd love to know more about that program, to be honest with you. And any program that is really good that has to do with custody issues is going to be doing a lot, I mean a lot of urine testing. I don't mean urine testing once a month. I don't mean urine testing once every 2 weeks. I mean every time that person shows up for a session, some kind of counseling session, they should be urine tested, because you're playing with fire here. You want to make sure that these parents have it together, are recovering from their addiction, and are responsible now and healthy and ready to take Oakley back before you take her, away from her foster family that is very loving, caring, and very healthy for her. So, when you're giving a child back to people that had an addiction problem, you got to make sure that they're together and they're recovering enough and responsible enough and mature enough to take this child back and to raise her. At this point in time, because we don't know what happened to Oakley, she's seemingly disappeared into thin air. Stock Incorporated, our organization, is going to put out a $10,000 reward. It's a $10,000 reward, a one-time payment that will be good for 6 months. We'll reevaluate it after 6 months, but it's a one-time payment of $10,000 for 6 months for the recovery of Oakley. So if any of you out there know where Oakley is for sure and can direct law enforcement right to Oakley to recover her, you will receive a $10,000 reward from us. One-time payment. So we're really going to make sure that you know where Oakley is before we give you this $10,000. And hopefully you're going to get in touch with law enforcement. If you have a problem talking to law enforcement for whatever reason, certainly you can give us the tip and we'll call law enforcement with the information. And we'll still give you the $10,000 one time once law enforcement recovers Oakley. So let that be known. Also, we're going to put a number up there where, so if you know where Oakley is, you can call law enforcement. Their number happens to be 360-533-8765. That's law enforcement for Oakley Carlson, 360-533-8765. Also, to get in touch with us, you can email us at johnkellyprofiler@gmail.com, johnkellyprofiler@gmail.com. Now, the other thing we're looking at, because this is not our first rodeo with this stuff, is looking for Oakley. And where would I look? Where would we look? I would suggest starting with people, places, and things related to the parents. When you're dealing with meth addicts, you're really dealing with a circle of people that they run around with. And it's usually not that big of a circle. But meth addicts know other meth addicts, and meth addicts have dealers that deal meth, correct? So as long as we understand that, that's probably the best place to start. Look at the people, places, and things related to their parents' drug use. Excuse me, to their parents' drug use. The people who we'd be looking at are people that hung out with the parents, people that used with the parents, drug dealers that dealt to the parents, even friends or relatives of theirs that may know them, may not travel in their circle, their meth circle, but may have known them and may have wanted a child. Who wanted a child? You know, who couldn't have a child that wanted a child, or who wanted a child for whatever reason? And there could be some really dark, nefarious reasons here why someone would want Oakley and would pay money for it. You know, we have to bear in mind and keep in mind all the time that in order to keep an addiction going, a drug addiction going, you need money. Meth addicts need money to buy meth. Okay, it's real simple. So they've got to get the money somewhere. You know, as I mentioned, we'd be looking at people, places, and things connected to the parents. The other thing I'd be looking at after the people is the places. Where did they get high at? Who would they get high with? Who would they come in contact with there? Where do they buy their drugs? Where do they work? Usually the last thing to go in an addiction is the job. Okay, so usually addicts have jobs up until the end. Okay, and the reason for this is because the job is where they're getting the money to buy the drugs. As I said, you have to have income to keep an addiction going. You have to have money because drugs cost money. It's that simple. Meth costs money. It's that simple, right? And also in those places where they may have used or worked or socialized, who may have been interested in a child in those places to raise for whatever reason. The last thing are things. We've talked about people, we've talked about places, now we'll talk about things. When we talk about things, we have to look at phones. You see, addicts, like anybody else, meth addicts have to communicate. They've got to communicate with their dealer and with other meth addicts for whatever reasons to keep the addiction going, whether they're calling them on the phone, they're meeting them on the street. But right now I'd like to stay with phones. You know, also we have to look at the internet. Were they in communication with other people through texting or emailing? Again, meth addicts are no different than any other people as far as communicating to get what they need. If you're going to buy something, you're out looking for some kind of drug, you're going to have to communicate with a dealer or communicate with other people that know dealers to get these drugs. So there is going to be some kind of trail of communication that took place, whether it be phone or whether it be text or whether it be email. There's going to be something. And I think looking back through these records, which I'm sure the cops are doing, when Oakley and before Oakley was identified as missing, I'm sure it's all going to, something could be there that they could follow up on. You know, the last part of it is something that's very sad, but in a way, something that gives me hope here. See, I have hope that Oakley is alive. I have a lot of hope. And I just usually don't have the hope I have now in other older cases that I've worked, and I'll tell you why. First of all, a known fact for us, a very sad but known percentage for us that work these cases, is that 70% of children that are abducted by a stranger are killed within the first 3 hours of their abduction. So, you know, when it's a stranger abduction, you got to move quick. And for 70% of the time, you got within 3 hours to try and find that child and find this perpetrator. But you see, in this case with Oakley, we don't seem to have a stranger abduction, because if there was a stranger abduction, these parents, I am sure, would have immediately called the cops and said, hey, somebody stole my child. Somebody kidnapped my child. You see, these parents never told the cops that Oakley was missing. They never reported her missing. So that's pretty nefarious as far as the parents go. It's pretty dark, okay? But that also tells us that it probably wasn't a stranger abduction. So if it wasn't a stranger abduction, maybe we're going to get some leeway there as far as Oakley being alive or not. This is important. Because when the cops discovered that Oakley was missing from the house, the detectives also identified, based on the reporting, that her clothes were gone and her toys were gone. The clothes were there for the other kids. The toys were there for the other kids, but not Oakley. Oakley was gone. Her toys were gone. Her clothes were gone. See, to me, that's like she was packed up and sent off somewhere. That's only my opinion, okay? Because I don't know, and I mentioned it before, of any kidnapper that's going to say, okay, kid, let me get you in the car, but before I run away with you, I want your clothes and toys too, okay? So you see, this is all kind of strange here, you know, but it gives me hope. It gives me hope that that Oakley went somewhere and she wasn't killed, you know, that she's alive, and somebody may be caring for her or using her for nefarious reasons. I don't know at this point in time. But it leads me to believe that there's hope here. There's a chance she's still alive, and we're going to run when she's alive until we hear any different, and you know, we see what happens here. The other thing is that you know, the focus has to be on when a child is, you know, just missing or disappeared, and there's no word, there's no feedback, she's not reported missing. I mean, you have to believe there's some kind of involvement, definitely from the parents, because why would they not have reported her missing in the beginning? So anyway, that's where we're at for today. Again, let's have good thoughts and blessings for Oakley. And we're going to keep you posted on this case. Please, as always, take care of yourself. Be safe. Be well and make it a great day. And God bless Oakley, and God bless you. Thank you so much.